Hello, Africa and the rest of the world. I pray that you are well. I pray that, and I'm actually happy, to be honest, that I am alive and well and getting this opportunity to share intellectual conversations on issues pertaining to societies and our relations to the world, philosophical approaches, deductive reasoning, theological conversations, political assertions, and all these topics that have been boxed and put in these topics as, for example, a friend of mine, we have been having a conversation on the irrelevance sometimes of these complications, especially as an example, politics. Why is it called politics? Fine, we know the deductive reason from polis in Greek academia. But now the question would be, it loses its understanding or its positioning because people do not understand. It's like there is an attempt to kind of shield what politics is. Politics is the management of resources, of a grouping of people, and by a select few who say that they have better ideas by social integration, by social hierarchy systems, or by a set of ideas imposed on them by colonizers, as in the case of most of us, who are killing each other left, right, and center for an ideal called democracy. Now, today that is the topic. I wish that wherever you are, you take time to think. Think. The one thing that we should do at all times is to think. Let us be open-minded. Look at everything from a blank position. Okay. Democracy. Who is democracy? Whose democracy? Who gave us democracy? What is it? And is it for us? Is it for us as a society? Is it for us as Africans? These are questions that we should always ask each other. Is this thing good for us? Democracy is an ideal. An ideal would mean that it is something, a process that you would have to get. It is a process of coercion, it's a process of merging with a certain position. And a set of ideas that are literally based in liberalism. Liberalism is from Libatian philosophy. We understand this is autonomy of the individual. The less ruling government is the best government. A government that says it's an agreement based on a contractual base. Now the question is, who gave us these ideals of democracy that we are now killing each other for? Who gave us? And what is the history of those that gave us the democracy with their idea of democracy? Is England a democracy? Fine, it has characteristics of a democracy, but it is not a full-on democracy. What is a democracy? A democracy is an ideal. What is an ideal? A process where we don't know, a utopia. Why embrace such? Why kill each other for a destination that we are not sure we can ever actually achieve? These are critical questions that we should always ask. Why take a position against my brother? Why be divided as an African man in African society? After all the divisions that have been imposed us, the borders that have been put there for economic irrelevance, and I would like to talk about that even further. Language has been used primarily to destroy our society. It is the lack of knowledge that makes us not understand these things. It is the effect of using a language that is not yours that actually makes you think a certain way. Now I would want to tell you categorically clearly, I am ashamed that I assert myself or even proliferate in this language, not because of any hate position, but because it means that mine is not good enough. That means that there is a psychological position that comes from inheriting someone else's language. We have to learn to speak a truth that they came, they stayed, they took over and imposed on us a system of governance that would benefit them. Please tell me how. A society that is not mineral laden, calling a society that is mineral-laden the cradle of civilization, the cradle of education, calling us dark continent. So what are you doing in the dark? What is it that you can come with here? You have nothing. You came to eat. You came to sit at our table. Now the question is, when is the African going to stop talking about what happened to us? When are we going to give those long lectures and actually give hero statuses to those that tell us how the white men did this, how the white men raped our grandmothers, how the white man is taking to the white man? When? If your son was to be bullied at school, what would you do? Your son gets bullied today, you would say, okay, next time I want you to stand up for yourself. I want you to say no. And when you do so, the bully will respect you. Now, the bully came on our shores just in the late 18th century. He took our lunchbox, not only our lunchbox, the next day he took our pants, next day he took our shoes, next day he took everything. Allegorically, he took everything. And after that, we are still talking about what he did. What now are we going to talk about what we are going to do? Now, I am quick to the conclusion. The conclusion for Africa is a restoration in educational positions that come from Africa, that come from people. The question is, the African society is so divided. Which African society am I talking about? Are they real Africans? There are no Africans. Right now, to ask the new generation, where was Shaka's capital? They do not know. But they know Little Wayne lyrics. They know every song white girls sing, and they dress like them. This is because of the cultural corrosion and actually the allegiance that we give to the kingdom. Listen to that. The kingdom, the imperial majesty, of Her Imperial Majesty, the Queen. We are talking nonsense if we are going to say that a man like me, I'm telling you, I am a very serious man when it comes to issues pertaining to Africa and our self-pride, and I speak in clear English. That is allegiance to a system. What we do not want to understand is that imitation is the highest form of flattery, and in this case, this is now perpetual servitude. It has given us an economic connotation that is disastrous. Now the question is there a relationship between language and finance? And the answer is a vehement yes. There is a steady and a serious relationship between the tenets, the tentacles of language and an economic system. Even those that, my friends, that are in the biblical circles, the theologians, they would tell you of the assertion that was found on the Tower of Babel. The Tower of Babel, what did God do? He said that the Bible gives an understanding that there was an agreement, they were in agreement, and they were moving very fast. They spoke one language. When they had that language, speaking the same is agreement. You cannot come and infiltrate the way I think if I don't speak your language. I speak the Queen's language because I'm an ambassador. I'm an extension. I am a son of the British Empire. And we have to face these truths that the African, one, failed to protect his ideas. The African, two, is in denial. Three, the African is non-existent. You can't tell me you're African. You buy white, look at me. You cannot tell me that we are making efforts. We are showing that there's a social corrosion that has happened in our society. You can't tell me that. You can't tell me that if you are, I would like you for anything that you would want to do. Right now, if I want to call someone that is in the next room, I have to use the white man's infrastructure. This is not a speech, this is a fact. I have to triangulate to France to talk to someone here. It means that I can't even have a strategy to redress the positions that are there. Now, the white man is intelligent in the sense that hunger will give you a position of saying, I want to build a house. You couldn't sleep at England and wake up alive. So, we find necessity being the mother of that invention and weapons and coming here. However, the question is posed by another academic, and he says, how therefore does it make sense is that we were colonized by weapons in the 18th century, and still today there is not a manufacturing company that manufactures African weapons. That is a problem with the African, because it is non-existent. We pay an education that tells our children that David Livingstone discovered the Victoria Falls, and because we are now we have conformed to that understanding. Now, clinical psychologists, you can check this anywhere. There is a relationship between language, education, and power. You'd find that last year the GDP per capita, the highest was Qatar. Does Qatar speak its language? Yes. Does Qatar have mineral resources? Yes. It had a GDP of 93,508 per capita. Number 2 was 72, which was Switzerland. We have to look around and see those that have managed in the last 10 years to come where they are. In 1991, the economy of China was smaller than that of Spain. And today it's growing at what level? They have a Minister of Foreign Affairs who doesn't speak English. We think it is trivial. Clinical psychologists, and so many have written 2 papers on this. Language affects how you think, personality, and identity. Cultural positions are taken in language. I can give you a simple example. I come from a country that is colonized by the British. Now, the British have a distaste for the Portuguese, not even on an intellectual position. They find them to be brutes, the same way they find us to be brutes, and everyone else. They find them to be commoners and rough, and the extensions of Spain's escapades in looking for gold everywhere. Now, it is almost impossible for me to befriend a Mozambican man, because I look at him inside, honestly, without wanting to lie to each other, as a non-intellectual entity. I look at him as a salsa dancing, pasada loving black brother. I don't understand why they're dancing that salsa in that sand, because the master's enemies become my enemies. Malcolm X said, when the house nigger has been infiltrated because he is now in love with the crumbs at the table of the master, he says when the master is sick, we are sick. If the master's house was to burn down, he says our house is about to burn down. He would lay down in his life. He has forgotten his position. Then no matter what high-sounding nothings we might speak, as long as we use the tentacles that were used to cripple us, to cripple our minds, as long as we sit down and say nonsensical positions such as, I am apolitical. Being born is a political act in its highest index. Did you buy bread today? Buying bread is a political act in its highest index. It is the work of Adam Smith that tried to give, in the 18th century, to try and give and hide the capitalistic nature of politics and the rebranding of it and coming into, it was actually political economy, because that's what it is. Politics is management of your resources. Liberalism will not stand in Africa. Why are we sitting down talking about issues that have nothing to do? They saved the Rhino Foundation. Meanwhile, we are dying every day. Our children are bamboozled. They do not know who they are. They think they're extensions of America. They think they're extensions of postmodern societies. They do not have a heritage. They fear their grandmothers as witches. And it is our responsibility to fight this, to redress this now. I would like to thank you for allowing me to share these positions with you, as these are truly fact-laden, and I want them to start something within the African corners. Let us start being practical. We can do it. It's not going to be now. Let's start living in continuity. The idea that we have a constitution, the idea that we have a liberal system, it is because these systems are predictable. Now, do you know what that means? Why would someone push an agenda that is predictable, and a constitutional position that where we actually gazette it, and yet we already use his language, yet we already talk on his phones, yet we have too many tentacles around those that colonized us. Now, however you want to look at it, whatever you want to say, this is not hate speech. Let's say they are not bad. White people are actually good. White society is actually good. The truth is that there is no evidence of it. The truth is that when they got into power in Africa, they never gave us democracy. So why should we pursue such a democratic position? The truth is that there is no marriage. There is no evidence between a majority having enlightened ideas. Majorities have a history of being wrong. It was a majority that did not jump into the ark. It was a majority that did not believe in the form of the earth. It is a majority that is wrong. There wouldn't be enlightened positions. Ideas do not visit majorities. Are we saying that as a majority, under the principles of liberalism and democracy, if we are supposed to jump off a bridge, we should then all die because everyone is feeling suicidal? That does not make sense. As much as trivial as that sounds, that's exactly what we are living under. How can those that have no minerals finance Africa? How can those that have no medicine, no herbs, come and feed and try and nourish Africa and say, we want to help you? No, we should never trust such. It is that trusting nature that put us in this position in the first place. Fine, our economics of the day was in such a position that we did not have a position that was unwelcoming of visitors. We had seen the Portuguese and we had traded and they had left. We had kings who were wearing silk. We need to say to ourselves, as much as our political system was failed to interpret it and to stand, we need to salute our history. We need to write our history. They write of Shaka as a brutal savage. What about Jameson? He came and wiped out people who are there. They played cowboys and Indians, and guess who won in Texas? It is the cowboys. Now, we need to stop fighting each other and have a position that comes from within, that says that enough is enough. We do not seek any violent positions, but however, we will start to redress our positions as Africans. We will start to trade amongst ourselves. There is nothing wrong with that. The difference between us and white society, I have white friends, but they understand that you do not choose your color of your skin, your culture, your people. They know that. They do not make it a personal position. We do not even talk about it. Have you ever asked a white man about his political views? He will not tell you. To him, that is the most sacred of all. Why should our political positions be paraded everywhere? Why should our monarchs be called witches when they have a sitting monarch? We have to look at things factually. Now, I intend on starting conversations with enlightened and those that want to have social progression and say, educational redress is the conclusion. We are using the wrong metric. We are using their metric. Language shapes your personality. Do you know why? I'm not even going to quote anybody. It is public knowledge only that we have no time to look at things that say to why do we not own land? How do we sleep when we have never seen diamonds, when the queen's crown jewels are laden with diamonds? And yet they have the nerve to say, no, those are blood diamonds. All diamonds are blood diamonds. With that I say to you, good evening, and sleep in a position that suggests a thinking mind. Wake up and say to yourselves, what am I living? Why are we having children when we have no land? Why are we having white weddings? Why are we doing these things? They have a cultural corrosive nature that comes with it. And it is sad, it is one that we should not have children that have no inheritance. Do you know what it means? I do not know what I would tell my son or my daughter. That I was a man and this is our country and we don't own any land. You can't do it. I hope you can't. Black and fabulous. Patson Mashingaide, Fungawite Foundation, enlightened thought is the think and do people. Let's not stop thinking, but let's do also. Good evening.